Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 13th and final round of the Tata Steel Chess Tournament 2025. This tournament is known as the Wimbledon of Chess, and for that reason, its final day cannot disappoint. This will likely be one of the best chess videos you've seen in a long time. And if you've never seen a chess video, and you clicked on this video because of the YouTube algorithm, welcome to the chess world. You're about to watch an epic grand finale. Going into the final round, in the Masters section, Gukesh, the reigning world champion, the youngster, is tied for first place with the other youngster, Praggnanandhaa. Both of them from India with 8.5 points. They need to draw their games to get to 9 points or win their games to make it to the finale. Well, here we go. As always, if you'd like to check out some of my educational material, got a link to Chessly in the description. Free trial, 7 days, no card required. Over 50 courses you can try. And I will be going on tour in May of 2025. And you will be hearing about these things throughout. So links are in the description for those. And now, folks, we've got to watch some pretty epic chess. So, first things first. Gukesh in the last round has the white pieces versus Arjun Erigaisi. Erigaisi is one of the best players in the world. But he's playing in one of his worst tournaments ever. He hasn't won a game until yesterday in round 12, when he took down Nodirbek Abdusattorov, who is also trying to make a case for first place. So Gukesh has the white pieces, and he's playing against Arjun. You know, these two have played against each other. Arjun actually has a pretty decent score. Arjun plays the Petrov defense. He's sort of looking to maybe kill the game a little bit, not give Gukesh any, strong opportunities to kind of put pressure. Queen e2 pins the knight to the king. We have knight e3. And from the early opening, it was just about the most provocative type of position that you can get. When the kings go to opposite sides, it means attacks are much more likely and much more possible. And on an open board like this, when obviously the players can just start marching their pawns toward one another, it means that generally the first person to arrive on his opponent's territory has an advantage, right? And that is why in this position, Gukesh plays the move b4, essentially to the surprise of nobody. Now, to the untrained eye, that just simply looks like the knight can take. The problem with this move is that you open up the bishop, and also you open up the rook. And after rook b1, even just retreating like this, as you can see, loses the game. White sacrifices the rook, plays queen b5 check, plays bishop c6, and simply wins, at least the queen. And that is why, out of nowhere, out of seemingly nowhere, an attack can just brew, and that would be the end of the game. Which is why Arjun follows a very good protocol. When you're being attacked in chess, okay, a very nice way to counter that is to kick your opponent in the face. Could be a 5-year-old, 15, 40-year-old. For legal reasons, if you do this at your local chess club, I am immune. This is clearly humor. Unless they really deserve it. Like if they're eating and spitting sunflower seeds at you, you have my permission. Okay, for legal reasons, that's still a joke. D5, all right? B5. Anyway, the best way to actually... I realized I didn't actually tell you what I wanted to tell you. I just told you to kick your opponents in the face. The best way to meet an attack on the edge of the board is generally to strike back in the center, okay? So D5, B5, knight A5, D4, and here we go with the bishop on H3, and that means that the next few moves for Arjun will be H5 and H4. It's a very tense position. Gukesh is still trying to kind of build up his attack. One of the most insane things about this position, some of you may know me, some of you may not know me as the person that constantly yells sacrificing the rook. That generally means bulldozing the rook through your opponent's defenses. Well, in this particular case, you just move the bishop here. I've never seen something like this, literally. Like, I maybe ever. You just lose the rook. Why? Because after queen f1, white is much better. Because you're going to win the pawn on d5, I guess? And then you will just have very strong play against this bad knight, and, your pawns will get moving. Crazy. Bishop f3 doesn't even, Gukesh spent 17 minutes here. He probably had many choices. I don't know how strongly he considered bishop f3, but he goes here. And he grabs a pawn, but this is the type of position that Arjun really likes. Arjun is a madman. I mean, if you look at his games in the Olympiad when he was just destroying everybody, this is generally how he plays chess. And, it looks like there shouldn't be anything. I mean, there's no mate, right? There's no mate. The king is always escaping. Queen is protecting. But Arjun just kind of has an annoying pressure here on Gukesh. And remember, Gukesh is tied for first, so a loss isn't the worst thing in the world for him, but he probably shouldn't lose, except suddenly he's going to have his bishop traded, and Erigaisi has 19 points of... I mean, this is when I told you in the very beginning of the game. This is, by the way, we're on move 23. On move 10, they castled. Okay? In a span of 13 moves, the board looks like a wasteland, and it looks like there is a bazooka heading down the H-file. And this is generally what happens in opposite side castling positions. All right, so rook dh8, rook b4 attacks the knight just moves, and then I could have gone back to d6, doesn't really matter. Gukesh still kind of trying to open up the position, that's why he played b6 and rook a4, but it's just not enough, and actually black's king, this is gangster stuff, king d8. This is really epic stuff. The king just stands in the center, there's a rook pointing, there's a rook here, there's a queen, but you can't go queen d5, and black threatens mate. Not mate, but rook will come down, and then you will lose everything. So f3 is chosen, but the queen goes over here, and this is the end of the game. Both sides of the board, rook h1 check. Now, it looks like you can just give up the queen for the two rooks, and you would be right, because you actually do survive. There is no way to win your rook. However, if you go here, I go queen b1. This is the problem, and you will lose the queen. And in this position, Gukesh resigned, and Arjun Erigaisi won in 30 moves. Arjun Erigaisi ended this tournament, the worst tournament of his life, by defeating the number 2 and number 1 ranked guys. He beat Nodirbek Abdulsatorov, who was in third place, after the guys were tied for first. And he beats Gukesh. So Arjun ends the tournament with 2 wins, after losing 5 games out of his first 7. 4 games out of his first 7. I apologize. Crazy. What a tournament for Arjun. What a turnaround. And Gukesh loses. So now it's all up to this game. I mean, basically, if Pragg scores half a point, he wins the tournament. Now, you don't know that, right? Like, as the game is already on move 30, it's not like you start your game. But it all comes down to this game. By the way, quick side note, little detour to the Challenger section, because the winner of the Challenger section makes it to the Masters the next year. So in 2026 January, there is going to be a player who qualifies from the Challenger section, and it was this man from the Czech Republic, Tai Dai, or Tai Nguyen, and he was under pressure in this game. He did not have a great position, but Benjamin Bach, his opponent, got low on time, and ultimately was kind of caught in a little bit of a time scramble with 40 seconds on the clock. And by the time the dust had settled, we reached an endgame where, you know, black had the significant winning chances because of his b-pawn, although the computer evaluated it as equal. And ultimately, Tai shielded his pawn correctly and got a queen. Well, basically. Now he got a queen, right? b1. A long, hard-fought battle. Tai wins the Challenger section with 9.5 out of 13 points, and he will play in the Masters next year. So that's very nice. Now, no disrespect whatsoever, but your time will come. Okay, Tai, you'll play in the next edition. We're going to get you in here. I'm sure you're going to have some nice wins. Now we got to look at this game. It's one of the most insane games of chess I've ever seen in my life. So remember, Pragg is like, I'm playing black, right? Pragg is looking at this game. He doesn't know the result. And he's thinking Gukesh has white. If Gukesh wins, means I have to play for a win. So Pragg plays the Caro-Kann. It's pretty epic stuff, huh? Pretty epic stuff. You know what else is pretty epic stuff? That Luka Doncic trade. What the heck? That was the most insane thing I have ever seen in my life. In sports. Well, second to this Caro-Kann game, but like my mind is blown. The Lakers get this young man who they can build for after LeBron retires, but they lose an elite defender. I don't know how they're going to play defense or have a big body, you know, except for their center at the moment. And the Mavs lose Luka Doncic. They get Anthony Davis, who's a fantastic player. Maybe they have good championship aspirations for a year or two, but what? When was the last time 2 like top 5, top 10 players got traded for each other? It's unbelievable. Anyway, Vincent plays the 2 knights Caro-Kann. Here's the funny thing about this opening is that Vincent Keymer himself has played probably 300 Caro-Kann games. Pragg plays the Caro-Kann against one of the most active practitioners of the Caro-Kann, who plays one of the most annoying lines, the 2 knights. I hate this, right? This type of setup. In the recent tournament that I played, my opponent played b3 against me. That was Mikola. That was a wild game. In this game, we get bishop e2, and then Pragg plays d4, shoves the pawn forward, and bishop d6. which is one of the approaches, c3 and c5, and this is the position that we have to work with. Vincent is going to put this knight out on the c4 square. He's going to play d3. He's going to play g3, just very slowly improve the position. And, you know, here's the thing about the setup for black. Black gives up the light squared bishop. Then black puts a bunch of pawns on the light squares and basically says, I have a very powerful wall of pawns. But there is one way that black can also play the structure, which is the way that Pragg is choosing to play it, which is a hybrid. A setup where he's like, I'm not playing on the light squares, but your light squared bishop is not useful. It's not useful here. It's not useful there. Basically, it's kind of like a weird meta strat. And as you can see from the computer's evaluation, yeah, the computer actually agrees. It thinks that, you know, it's equal. White has the light squared bishop, but the light squared bishop isn't really impressing anybody. The reason I really struggle with these positions with black in the Caro-Kann and why I've started playing more Sicilian is because, like, slowly white's going to figure it out, you know? And, you know, Vincent plays a4, and he plays g3, and actually Pragg does get a better position in this game. According to the engine, you know, you see black there with a microscopic advantage, but overall, it's kind of only white who's going to have the fun in the long run. And look at this, like, we've just made a few moves, you know, both guys kind of trying to improve, and already white had an edge. He didn't have to go h4, but, you know, he's going to be rerouting his pieces throughout the game, and that's what he's going to do. And it's just white who's going to end up having the fun in the long run. And remember, at this point, about 28 moves into the game, Gukesh has been defeated. So Gukesh loses. Pragg is sitting there. He sees that. And he's like, okay, if I make a draw, I'm the tournament champion. If I win, I'm also the tournament champion. But if I make a draw, I'm the tournament champion. Let's hold this position. It's not a great position, right? Why is it not a great position? Black's pieces are sort of passive. There's a wall built around them. And look who it is. Like a villain in a movie. You know, you thought there was a big boom and the villain was there and that's it. And you want, no, and here comes the villain. And the villain's like armed. And you're like, oh my God, what? I thought we got rid of you. But you got to realize the counterpart was traded on the fourth move. That's the entire strategy of the game. And so now, you know, you're going deep in the game. And suddenly here comes the light squared bishop. And we get a game where Vincent is just under pressure. He's under pressure for the, Vincent is putting pressure. Look at this. He brings his knight forward. He brings his queen. Look at the position. I mean, here, you know, knight g6 and queen c7 was the right approach. Okay? So you had to go knight g6 and queen c7, and that's how you had to collect. But just overall, if you just take a look, like, Pragg is under massive pressure here. Massive. And Vincent is just moments away from breaking through. Knight g6, the computer is still trying to defend. He's looking. Finally, he makes the right move, and he lands the tactic. Bishop takes f7. If you trade with me, I take this, I take this, I take this. The only hope Pragg has here is to play an opposite-colored bishop position. And Vincent is a pawn up, and he's going to start bringing in his king. Look at this. King h3, king g4. Perfect play. Perfect play. f4 is fantastic. I mean, f4 is a little bit rushed, but it's a very nice move. And the point is, he's now just breaking through. He's breaking through. The only thing you want to avoid in a position like this is trading pieces too quickly, getting into a drawn endgame. But what's crazy is Vincent wins if he plays f takes e5. Because if bishop takes e5, he goes queen g6, he threatens mate, and he threatens a reroute, and he threatens h6. So he has 3 different threats. And if he takes, and this is winning for white, because white goes king f5, and then white goes bishop f7, and then white advances the e-pawn, and white wins the game. You cannot defend this with black. It's an opposite colored endgame, but the king is in a cage. I mean, the kings just can't get out, right? Vincent put in the work, and within a span of 2 moves, panics completely and loses 2 pawns. What? So Vincent didn't think that he could take on e5. He thought that, I guess, trading, it doesn't work. So he did this, and Vincent loses 2 pawns. But he's still playing for a win. This is the craziest part about this position, is that black's king is butt cheeks. Like, queen h7 is made. So the king runs. Queen e6, king h8 back. Queen here, check here, defending himself. By the skin of his teeth, Praggnanandhaa is about to draw this game and win the 2025 Wimbledon of chess, the Tata Steel chess tournament. King f3, bishop f6, bishop e4. There's nothing there. Pragg is basically just going to shuffle his pieces back and forth. But there was a reason. There was a reason why this move was so good. And you see Pragg now starts shuffling the bishop back and forth. He's like, I can't lose. He can. He can lose. He can lose. He can lose. The bishop needed to go this way. Why? Because if h6 were played, now the bishop just sits and waits. This is unbelievable. I mean, this is the way Pragg had to hold this game. Like Houdini. He had to move the bishop back and forth. He can't move. He can't move anything because takes his mate. He can't move the queen because this is mate. All right? He's got to be really careful the way he does this. But he goes the wrong way. And now he's losing because black is out of moves. Black has to make a move. Let's say he goes bishop c7. But if bishop c7, it's takes, check here. Queen e8, queen f8, queen g6, or bishop d5, queen d7, and you win the bishop. That is why this is winning. But it's even worse for Pragg because he gets mated. King here, check, here, mate. He would have had to lose his queen and lose the game. And this was a masterclass positional game from Vincent Keymer until he goes completely crazy, loses 2 pawns, and is no longer winning. Pragg was so close to becoming the champion, but he goes down because it was a very difficult position to defend practically. Vincent regains his composure and wins, and he wins the game, and he finishes the tournament with 6 points. But the bigger story is that now Gukesh and Pragg have to play a tiebreak. It's a blitz tiebreak, 2 games, to determine the champion of the 2025 edition of Tata Steel. This also happened in the Candidates Tournament. Going into the final round of the tournament that Magnus Carlsen won, I always forget, 2012, 2013, he was in first place, and so was Vladimir Kramnik. Yes, the same Vladimir Kramnik who has gone on many crusades of anti-cheating in the last few years in the chess world, and if that doesn't mean anything to you, don't worry about it. But, you know, most incumbent chess fans do know. Yeah, that was, you know, that was the candidates were in the last round. They both lost. So Gukesh and Pragg both lose. The only person that could catch them, Nodirbek Abdusattorov, did not win. He drew. So he finishes half a point behind them. And now they have to play a blitz playoff. Gukesh starts with knight f3, using the prep that he just played in the World Championship. It's a blitz game, a 3-minute, 2-second bonus blitz game to determine the champion of the Tata Steel 2025 chess tournament. Bishop on c5, a3, a5. Black playing in a nice way, not allowing white to expand on the queen side. Bishop g5. All of this has been played before. It's one of the most ambitious ways to play. Knight goes to e4, trading off the bishop, and Pragg restricting Gukesh. All right. Gukesh making some incremental improvements. By the way, kind of hilarious. Gukesh's blitz rating is 2,600. I mean, he just played a classical game. His rating was 2,777. Both these guys are lower rated in blitz than they are in the other formats. e5. And now it's not, you know, in case it's not clear, the b pawn is going to be moved. A b3 en passant. Rook b3. And it's clear that Gukesh is going to try to make some progress, but he gets himself into some trouble. Okay? Pragg is now a pawn up. Queen b2. Now keep in mind, what are the dynamics going into this tiebreak? Gukesh had just spent like 3 hours being sad because he lost the game and regaining his composure. Pragg just had a game where he's going to find out that he had a draw and he's going to be frustrated. So it's very interesting to see, like, you know, Gukesh overall is probably going to be more calm. Pragg, meanwhile, fighting back, queen c7, knight f3. Okay, and suddenly Gukesh takes over the game. Queen b7. Look at what has happened. Black's pieces just scattered all over the board. Rook a8. Knight takes d4. Beautiful move. Beautiful move. If queen takes d4, rook e8 check deflects the rook from the defense of the queen. And if you don't do that, then I just take. So knight d4, and Pragg starts going wrong. 20 seconds on the clock. Gukesh misses a beautiful move. Knight b5 in this position. Really lethal. But the pressure continues. Pragg has 7 seconds on the clock. And now is like better, but it's blitz. I mean, anything can happen, and a blunder. Queen d6. The same tactic, the same deflection. You cannot take. Because of this, Pragg probably thought I'd just play king h7, but he blunders this. Insane. Pragg, 4 seconds on the clock, goes for a queen trade, plays this move with 1 second remaining, and blunders a rook, and blunders the game, and Pragg's woes continue. Gukesh's woes are now over. He wins this game. And Gukesh has a 1-0 playoff lead, which means all he needs to do, obviously, as we can tell, it's not that simple, is he has to not lose. It's not that simple. I mean, you can't just show up to a game and be like, well, I'm just going to draw or win. I mean, it's very straightforward. Pragg plays d4 and goes for the Trumpowski, my man. What a beast. I mean, this is awesome stuff. This is one of my favorite openings. He goes for the Trumpowski, plays e3. Gukesh plays g6. Nobody plays like this. Nobody plays like that. And Pragg doesn't take the knight, instead setting up like this, h3, and basically is like, look, I just have to develop the pieces and play chess. Now we have a London. We kind of have a London, except black played like this, which normally doesn't happen in the London. Generally, the bishop is developing over there. Knight goes back to d7, and Gukesh is like, well, I'm going to prepare this e-pawn move. And from the opening, it's quite clear that it is, you know, an equal position. There's really nothing special here. But let's not forget that Pragg has to win the game. So rook d1. Pragg just maneuvering. Both guys maneuvering. But Gukesh over-maneuvered. And suddenly here comes e4, arriving right on time, and the black position is not coordinated enough to meet this move. d4, that was not the best move. White should have gone for e5, which he plays a couple moves later, and it's still perfectly reasonable. Now both guys are blundering, because it's blitz and anything can happen. But suddenly Pragg makes 3 improving moves and has a much better position. And Gukesh has 15 seconds. So clearly the nerves are kind of catching up. Let it be known, Gukesh, in 2024, in January, also tied for first in this tournament and lost in a playoff against Wei Yi, the Chinese superstar, number 8 in the world. So 2 years in a row, Gukesh is in a playoff, right? This time he has the lead. Knight e7, queen c1, Pragg looking for his moment, knight b7, queen b7, and he grabs a pawn, and he's just looking very nice. Gukesh is going to try to get some counterplay, but he has 8 seconds on the clock. Everything is traded off the board here, but ultimately, it's just Pragg. Pragg is much better. He has to convert it, and he does. Oh my goodness. The boys are tied 1-1. And now here, how about this? How about this for epic? The tournament regulations say a 2-game playoff will be played, and then there will be sudden death, and they play until somebody wins. What if they just split the title? No, sorry, too soon. But if they make 3 draws, maybe they will split the title. I have no idea. But these are young guys. I don't think either of them particularly wants to draw. I think they're like, they could play 100 games, you know? But it's sudden death. We're not going to have any split titles. They flip a coin for the colors, and Pragg again gets the white pieces. And this time, instead of a Trumpowski, he plays a London. Okay, so now it's sudden death. Next point wins. This is how we're crowning the champion of the 2025 edition of this tournament. We have an anti-London, by the way, very reasonable way of playing it. Actually, it was Ding and Gukesh who played like this before. Gukesh played white, and this is what was played. And this is just a completely equal position by black, who gets the knight on d5. Gukesh was playing very, very nicely, doubling his own b-pawns, but opening up the position. At some point, that pawn is going to be useful to anchor in a knight, which exactly is what it's doing. And Pragg allows an infiltration and blunders something crazy. So in this position, he could have tried to save his pawn. Instead, he activates his pieces, and Gukesh creates a shield. And Gukesh is just up a pawn. He's just a pawn up, and Pragg has 30 seconds. This is crazy. Gukesh is winning with black. By the way, Gukesh probably could have traded the bishop here, and it would have been really nice because knight e4 arrives, and you simply win this pawn and are probably going to go on to at least put some serious pressure on white. But it is Pragg who reconsolidates, regains his composure, and runs the king up the entire b file. Gukesh is in time for counterplay over here, but it's just not fast. It's just not good enough. King b7, king c6, knight c4, scrambling backwards, and he saves all the pawns. So the first game of this tiebreak is going to end in a draw. Gukesh is obviously still trying to get back there, right? King d6, knight c4 check. It's going to end in a repetition, which is declined. He declines the repetition. He could have gone king d6, but he declines the repetition. Now both guys are scrambling, and Gukesh catches him. Knight f2, what do you play here? King d5, nice. Knight d3, knight e3, knight f4. Okay, king d6, and wait a minute. There's a threat, knight g4. There's also a threat, knight d5 check. What do? You got 8 seconds. You play h5. Is there knight d5? Do you take? No, you don't take because that's winning for white with king d5. So what do? If you play king g5, is there king e5? But there might be knight g2. But Gukesh has to calculate all this in 8 seconds, and he blunders. He blunders a fork. He blunders a fork. And Pragg is winning. And Gukesh, he doesn't blunder a knight here. He thinks that he has drawing chances here because he thinks that the knight is going to get in over there and the king is going to get in over there. But this is panic mode. This is what happens when you got less time on the clock. There might have been some very, very, very small chances, but the knight would have gone back and the pawn would have pushed. So he goes here, and now it's just about Pragg consolidating. 7 seconds on the clock. Look at this move. He's not allowing the king to get close. If the king does get close, you play knight e5, you start running your pawns up the board. You just need one pawn to survive, and it's a win because that pawn becomes a queen in the long run. King f4, knight f6. Gukesh running his pawns down, but he's out of time. He's out of time. And Pragg creates a blockade, and Pragg goes here, and Gukesh falls back in his chair. His time hits 0. He shakes the hand of Pragg, and Praggnanandhaa is the champion of the 2025 edition of the Tata Steel Chess Tournament, winning in a 3-game playoff against Gukesh, his compatriot, the world champion. Heartbreak for Gukesh, who led the tournament wire to wire. Like, he led almost the entire way. He scored 5 wins in the event, losing ultimately in the final round. So did Pragg, but Pragg also lost one more game. Crazy. Craziness all around. And twice now, Gukesh has been defeated in the tiebreaks of this event. Wild stuff. Absolutely wild stuff. The youngsters are fighting, and they are not letting up anytime soon. Experience beating youth here. Pragg, of course, a couple of years older than Gukesh. But what a show they put on. And that's all for this event. Congratulations to all the players. Tai Dai Van Wen in the Challenger section, who is now playing in the Masters. Tough tournament for Erigaisi. Also in the last round, Max Varmerdam, 2650 rated player, defeating Fabiano Caruana. Max Varmerdam beats Erigaisi and Fabiano in the same tournament, 2 2800s. Pretty insane stuff for him. And yeah, wow. Crazy stuff. The next big event coming up is freestyle chess. So in the meantime, in 2 days, I will see some of you in Hamburg, Germany. And by some of you, I mean literally like 80. That's it. Small event we're doing. And in May 2025, I'll be seeing some of you for the European tour. That's in Brussels, London, Vienna, Austria, Munich, and Berlin in Germany, and Warsaw in Poland. If you haven't gotten your tickets, get some tickets. And that's all for now. New courses are dropping on Chessly this month. D4 sidelines for black, 4 Knights Sicilian for black, anti-Sicilians for black, how to beat the Smith-Mora, the Rossalimo, as well as the Ruy Lopez, the Spanish for white. So those 4 courses are coming out on Chessly this month. If you're already a member, you get those for free. That just gets added on for your membership. And we're going to keep adding courses for all of you, and you get access to it. That's the beautiful thing about the new platform. Whether you pay per month or pay per year, we just add more value. So enjoy it. And if you haven't tried it yet, do try it. Link is in the description. For now, get out of here. And congratulations to Tai, and congratulations to Pragg.